Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is David Brooks, the Cadillac Counsel, coming at you to tell you a piece of my mind. And today I have a good friend by the name of Colt Black. I will tell you, me and this guy got to know each other 2 years ago when he was running. And I'll tell you, we had some couple chats. We were running into each other, putting out signs, and I'll tell you, he said, you know what? I'll take some of your signs, you take some of my signs, I'll put them out for you, you put some out for me in a couple locations, and I'll tell you, I've never forgotten that. And I'm just glad that he's coming in to interview with me, and I will let him tell his story and what he's going to do for the Board of Education. So, what's going on with you, Mr. Black?
Well, hey, David, thank you so much for reaching out. I appreciate what you're doing and giving the all the candidates for the Board of Ed race a voice. It is incredibly important for folks to be informed of who they're voting for the board for numerous reasons. Education is the bedrock of our society, of a civil society. Without it, proper education, regardless of your race, your gender, your socioeconomic status, it doesn't matter. Bar those things, without a proper education, you're not going anywhere in society. Education is the bedrock to upward motility in society. So, as somebody who wants to see success for all, um, I couldn't imagine a better place to be looking to run for office to aid and assist in bringing quality education and keeping it quality in Frederick County.
Very good, very good. So we'll start off asking some questions. I was reading over some of your points, and one of the ones that stood out to me was parental rights.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about kind of what's on your mind with parental rights.
Sure. So, parental rights really is a crux of where I am in my campaign. Whether we're talking about folks being advocates in special education, parents being able to advocate for their kids and their right to do so, whether that's a parent's right to be able to get involved in their child's disciplinary actions at school, or whether that is a parent's right to be able to say, you know what, something's against my religious or philosophical viewpoints. I'd rather my child not to learn about that. That is absolutely imperative that parents have the ability and the right to be involved in their child's education. If you go back historically, prior to the one-room schoolhouse, kids were educated by their parents. That was the foundational basis of education. And if parents aren't involved in that educational process, if they're not aware of what their children are learning, if they're not aware of, what's going on disciplinary with the kids, and, the school's not communicating, if there's something going on as far as special education, and, maybe the parents, I've heard of numerous parents who've had to hire attorneys to fight for their child's special education, their IEP or 504 plan. And as the father of a child with a 504 plan, that hits home. So parents need to have the ability to be involved and proactive with their child's schooling. So it hits on many touchstones, and there's a lot of depth to the subject, but parental rights is absolutely imperative to ensure successful, positive student outcomes in the school system.
A lot of people have been talking about disciplinary problems. Ki-
Sure.
Kids are smoking weed, vaping inside of the bathrooms. There's been bullying going on, and some of the parents feel as if their child cannot get a good education with all of this stuff going on in the school. What could you bring to the table to help ensure that the teachers are comfortable, the students are comfortable, and the administration can really have something that they can do about some of these problems?
Sure, that's a great question. It's interesting you mentioned about like the vaping and stuff like that. I know my eldest son has came home and talked about, even in middle school, about the vaping and smoking and things like that going on in the bathrooms and things, and also the vandalism too with TikTok. Social media has been quite the plague in the school system with some of these social media trends and students getting involved in that. I mean, really, one of the big things, I mean, especially just on a kind of a personal anecdotal level, is maybe a little bit more proactive monitoring in the schools, especially with the bathrooms. I mean, you do have teachers that are, in between classes and things like that, that, if there was maybe a desk stationed outside of the bathrooms, a staff member was visible, to be able to kind of police that, kind of hear what's going on in the bathrooms. We might be able to cut down on some of that type of both vandalism as well as, unbecoming and unlawful behavior in the bathrooms. I think that sometimes just having that a presence is all that's needed to deal with that. Now, if you're talking about fights and things of that nature, then we get into possibly need to look at maybe a few more school resource officers or some type of security in the schools to be able to help break those type of issues up. But certainly being proactive administratively to, if students are having problems, seeing that those problems are being dealt with before they actually turn physical. I think there's a lot of different things that we can do. But for me, as somebody, coming to the board, I would want to really speak with teachers and administrators and kind of get to the bottom of, what are they seeing? What is it that the board can do to help? I want to hear from them. I mean, obviously, we all have our own ideas and opinions, but getting perspective on that is incredibly important. And I'm sure that each school may have some unique differences. And I look forward to speaking with teachers and administrators on those subjects.
People are talking about the budget, and I know that there are tons of different ways to skin a cat. All right.
Sure,
But I looked at some of your points, and you kind of pinpointed something about what you would do about the fiscal part uh,
sure.
of trying to help these children out. What do you want to do with that?
So, it's really interesting with the budget. So I think that there's a lot of things, first off, that we could dig into. And I mean, obviously, many people get mired down and bored in the numbers, but I think a big number for us to be looking at is this overarching theme where we're approaching $1 billion. And probably by the time the general election's over, we will be over $1 billion in the school board budget. That's very concerning. Folks, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, it doesn't matter. That affects every property owner in Frederick County because the school board budget is all but the number one line item on the county budget. And we need to be seeing that money is going to where it's actually needed. I'm sure that there are schools that are sitting there struggling. Brunswick High School in particular, I actually took a trip over to Brunswick and took a look at the conditions at the school there. I mean, absolutely deplorable. If we go back in time a little bit to 2018 or so, the school superintendent has been speaking about, allocating more money to construct new schools. Since then, there's been one new school construction in the county. That's deplorable. So I asked, where's the money? If you're going to say you're building these new schools and there's one been built since then and it's now 2024, where is that money? So we need to bring in folks that's going to really take a hard look at this. Obviously, is there going to have to be cuts? There always is fat to be trimmed out of the budget. Now, what does that mean? I mean, there's always non-essential things that we can look to trim. What are some of those things? To give specifics, I really can't fully attest to that until we actually would start being able to break into the budget a little bit harder. Some of these things are not exactly as public to find on the board's website as one may imagine. So I think it really comes down to really taking a holistic approach, look at the budget, seeing that this money is actually going to where it's needed instead of going to wasteful projects in the schools, and just kind of nailing it down from there. We need to be getting back to the basics. Unfortunately, sometimes we get mired in, you know, extracurricular activities and things of that nature that, while they're nice, are not directly essential to the building blocks of learning. There are other places that folks can get involved in some of those extracurricular activities. So, I mean, could it potentially be that some of those extracurricular activities becomes an issue possibly. But I think we need to take a holistic approach, get into the numbers, and just kind of take it one step at a time. It's not a you know mad dash to the finish line. It's a marathon. And it needs to be taken a measured approach. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I mean, I know that's kind of talking around in circles to a degree, but it really is a complicated issue to where, until we really start learning a little bit more about some of these contracts and things the school board has with various vendors, and, looking at those numbers, I can't really give a fully educated answer to that until I'm able to get some of that information.
Okay, well, that's fair. There was a lot of talk when I was running 2 years ago, by some of the individuals that made it to the board last year, and they were talking about the emotional social learning, and they were saying that the schools are lacking it and it needs more of it. What is your opinion about that?
Well, I mean, obviously, emotional social learning it's an interesting topic. Um, I am not a huge advocate of that because unfortunately, I think sometimes emotions gets the best of people. What we need is facts. What we need is being pragmatic, and critical thinking. And unfortunately, we're not promoting that in school either. Um, you know, the basic building blocks of character, respect, trustworthiness, all those type of things. The old character count stuff. I don't know if you remember that from school.
Yeah.
Those are important foundational things. But you know, the emotional social learning, that terminology, it seems very new age to me, and I'm not necessarily a major supporter of putting more of that type of thing in school.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you this. There's a lot of topics. There's 17 people running. Why would someone, if they had six options that they could pick for the primary and then moving on, why would they want to say, I want Colt to represent me?
Sure, that's a very, very great question. So the reality of it is the first thing that I will say is the fiscal conservancy in schools is paramount in my book. If we don't have fiscal conservancy and we don't see that schools are being A, properly funded, and B, that the money's being allocated properly to where it needs to go to the programs that actually is educating kids, and seeing that we're treating our staff and our teachers, and paying them in the proper way, and also ensuring that they have a comfortable, safe place to come and work. I mean, because we could pay teachers $1 million, if you don't have facilities that they feel safe and comfortable coming to work every day, they're not going to stay, and nor are you going to recruit good teachers. So we have to make sure that those funds are absolutely going to where they need to. And that's one of the things for me that I am very, very big on, is ensuring that that money is going to exactly where it's needed. So that's number one reason to vote for me, is that fiscal conservancy. And also, again, if you're a taxpayer in Frederick County, it's an eye opener to think our school board budget is approaching $1 billion. So all these things, fiscal conservancy, making sure that the money's there, because otherwise, if the money's not there, we don't have schools. So that's number one. Number two, being a parental advocate, seeing that parents have the ability to be involved in their child's education, seeing that they have a voice to come and testify at the Board of Education. I mean, so many times you see these hearings around the country where, it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on or what you're coming there to discuss. So many times parents are getting shut down coming to speak before the Board of Education. And that's just in the public forum setting. When we get into the actual schools, it's definitely concerning where parents are almost treated as an enemy to the school, to the administrator, or to the teacher. And it's like they shouldn't be treated as an enemy. They're there as a partner to their child. Without that parent, the school wouldn't have a student. So we need to make sure that we are fostering those relationships, and, being a parental advocate, whether that is a situation with discipline, special needs, religious issues at school, where, a student is concerned about something that maybe they're learning. All these things uh, is definitely a parental advocacy standpoint, and something that I will definitely be making a touchstone of my platform. Um, and last but not least, the reality of it is I have three students in Frederick County Public Schools. I mean, I'm currently going through it. My oldest is in high school. My two youngest are in the environmental school at Sevillersville Environmental School. So, I'm not ignorant to it. It's not like, my kids have graduated and going on 20 years ago. I'm currently in it, so I'm in the struggle with every parent that would be voting. So I have a lot of commonality, and I'm here to try to improve conditions for every student, and I want to see us have quality teachers and quality staff, and that takes somebody with leadership, gusto, and that's me.
Hey, Colt, I appreciate you coming in. I enjoy your conversation. I wish you the best in your race, because out of 17, that's a lot of voices to hear, and I just want the community to hear them all so that we could truly pick the best people to represent our children, our parents, the teachers, and the administration. So I thank you.
Well, thank you, Dave. It's been a pleasure to be with you here. I appreciate again you putting together this opportunity for the 17 candidates. I understand there's a lot of work going into this, and I can tell that you're passionate about seeing quality schools for our students, and I greatly appreciate your time and dedication to this.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.